Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Now, before we get started here today, in light of current events, I just wanted to say that I am not an expert on fucking anything, especially on what's going on in the world today. I feel like since I have nothing intelligent or enlightening to add to the conversation, I think it's probably better for me to just sit back, listen, learn, and let this story be told from the people who are able to tell it. I think that voices are being heard, that changes are being made, and hopefully we can keep progressing and moving forward from this point on. And for everybody who has taken the action to protest, to donate either your time or your money, to support a Black-owned business, or to do anything else that's actually meaningful and helpful to the cause, I applaud and commend you. Keep doing what you're doing. So I've done a fuck ton of makeup shopping recently. I'm gonna be featuring some Black-owned indie makeup brands over my next few videos. And today I'm gonna start with the brand Colored Raine. So I picked up their bundle that they had on their website. Their bundle came with the Queen of Hearts palette, which is the very first product that I ever saw online from this brand, and it definitely sparked my interest. At the time, I think that I had just gotten the Modern Renaissance palette, and it seemed very similar, so I didn't splurge on this one because I already had bought something similar. I did last year buy the Safari Raine palette, and in this bundle that I got, it actually came with one of the lipsticks from the Safari Raine collection, and then it came with this smaller palette called Beauty Rust. And it's funny because when the mail came and I opened these palettes up, I was actually more drawn to the Beauty Rust palette than I even was the Queen of Hearts palette, and this is the one that I've always wanted. I don't know, just like the color story in this one is great. It's got those just rusty red tones. The neutral tones are kind of like that camel and mustard. Again, it's really pretty, but it also has those kind of like pretty ugly shades in it that I really like. So I was definitely drawn to this one. I think that what I'm gonna end up doing for today's tutorial is I'm going to kind of mix up the two. I think I'm gonna use some shades from Queen of Hearts. I also think I'm gonna use a few shades from the Beauty Rust palette and just kind of see what we come up with from there. So complexion products are on, hair is tied up, I've got some powder underneath my eyes to catch fallout, but I think I'm gonna go ahead and plop down just a little bit more just to be on the safe side. And so I think I'm going to start out with Royal Prerogative from the Queen of Hearts palette. I think this is just going to be a really good place to start. It'll be a good crease and transition color, and then we can go ahead and build up either some depth, some warmth, some color, or what have you right on top of that. So this is a Morphe R39. This is definitely one of my favorite brushes. I think it just really lays down the color really well, and it's really good for blending out too. Now, Colored Raine is one of those brands that I feel like, for the most part, they get it right with the color story. I feel like when I look at their palettes, nothing seems like it doesn't belong, you know what I mean? All of the colors in a palette really just kind of seem like they're gonna work well together, or just make sense to be in the same palette together, you know what I mean? Especially anymore where I feel like a lot of brands are just throwing in like a whole bunch of shit in one palette, and it's like, all right, here you go, figure out what you can come up with this nonsense, you know what I mean? I feel like there's a lot of that going on anymore. And with Colored Raine, I feel like even the few palettes that I look at and I'm like, that's not my color story, I can look at it and be like, okay, well, that's really cohesive. Those colors work really well together. They make sense. And I fucking love that Safari Raine palette. I've played with that one several times. It's been a while since I've dipped into it because I did depot that palette and I put it in a large palette with a bunch of other shadows, which I need to kind of break that down again and rebuild some palettes, put things into smaller palettes and not just in those giant palettes. The giant magnetic palettes are great if you have a huge collection and you just want to kind of house a bunch of stuff in them. They're great for that. But once they're in those, I find myself not really reaching for those as much. So from time to time, I feel like I need to go in and kind of grab some shades from those larger palettes and build some smaller palettes and come up with color stories that are really inspiring, you know what I mean? But that Safari Raine palette, when I went to depot it with the Z Potter, the shadows immediately kind of puffed up and crumbled, which I found that to happen with only a few different eyeshadow formulas, but it's definitely happened. So the Jeffree Star matte formula, it wants to do that when those shades are heated up. The Morphe Jaclyn Hill, the Vault collection, even on the lowest heat setting, as soon as you turn that thing on, all those shadows just immediately turned into loose powder. And I did find that to happen with the Safari Raine palette. So I don't know that I would depot these. I probably will just go ahead and leave them in their original packaging because I did have trouble depotting those. I mean, the pans did come out of the packaging and that was no problem, but the shadows themselves, when they got heated up just a little bit, it kind of fucked them up. That's a really pretty color. And actually, it's funny because just to look at this in the pan, it just looks like a mid-tone transition kind of brown color. But there really is like some interesting warmth in it. It's like, it's rich. It's almost like a cocoa kind of color. But at the same time, I can almost see a little bit of like a yellowy kind of, not like a halo, but it almost seems like there is just a touch of yellow in this brown, at least on my skin tone. And then I'm gonna blow out that under eye like the raccoon that I was born to be. Now, from my experience with these Black-owned indie makeup brands is that they are not fucking around when it comes to the pigment, which makes sense. They're making makeup that is meant to show up on a darker skin tone. And I feel like something that's gonna be rich enough and pigmented enough to pop on a deeper skin tone is going to be just as awesome on a fair skin tone like mine. Even when it comes to like Anastasia Beverly Hills, like if any of you guys have been here for any amount of time, you'll know that I do not really like their formula when it comes to eyeshadows. But the one palette that they've ever put out that I think is so fucking good is the Jackie Aina palette, which totally makes sense why that one is better than the other ones. It was created by somebody with a deeper skin tone that needed those colors to look good on themselves. So again, you put those rich pigmented colors on a lighter base and they really pop and they really show. And these richer, warmer colors against green eyes, they just make green eyes really pop too, you know? So then I'm gonna go into the shade Natural, and this one is from the Beauty Rust palette because I'm curious to see how these colors differ from each other. Because when you look at these side by side, they look very similar in the pan, but Natural just looks a little bit lighter. So I wanna see how that works to blend out the Royal Prerogative color. I think they'll work really well together. Yeah, I do think that those are very similar tones, and I think that they work really well together. But again, when you look at these two palettes side by side, they just look like they were kind of meant to go together. And this matte formula is really great because I can actually go in and kind of blend using circles or like the windshield wiper motions, and I don't feel like it's going to wipe away the shadow, you know what I mean? Where I feel like with the way that a lot of eyeshadows are formulated these days, if you really want the intensity of the color and if you really want to blend them really well without having skipping or patching or anything, you kind of have to go in and kind of pack things on and then kind of tap things out to blend them. Where with this formula, again, I can go in and I can sweep that on back and forth like this, and it's still continuing to build up that color, and I don't have to worry about erasing any of the shadow that I've already placed underneath it, you know what I mean? I have so much new cool shit sitting right here in front of me, and I'm so tempted to just throw it all on my face at once, but I'm like, calm down. You don't have to play with all of your new toys all at once. You can save some for another day. It'll be totally fine. But just know there really is some cool shit sitting here, and there definitely will be some fun new videos coming in the next few weeks. Now, I'm not sure if it's gonna make any sense whatsoever, but I kind of wanna start to build up some depth with the shade Ladyship. And this one is a really deep kind of like wine purpley pink color. And I've got like these rusty brown kind of tones going on. So again, I'm not sure if this is gonna work or if it's gonna make sense, but I do wanna go in there with that shade just for the sake of playing around with it. Makeup is fun, it's not serious, it's not permanent. So if you don't like it, you can, build up on top of it with something else, or wipe it off and start over, or wear it for the day and just do something different tomorrow. And so far, I think that's actually working really well. So I guess I'll go ahead and shut up and paint my face now. And now I'm kind of blending those colors in together just to make sure that we have a nice gradient. Make sure that there's no harsh, choppy edges. Although again, these shadows actually blend out super fucking easy, so I'm not that worried about it. And take a pencil brush and smoke that out along this lower lash line too. Do you ever blend out your under eyes to the point where you really feel like you've just made dark circles under your eyes? I feel like that's pretty much what I've just done here, but fuck it. Now I do want to go in with the shade Dusk right here, only because I feel like that one is going to be really deep, really rich. And I know this is probably going to cover up most of what I did with that pinky purple tone. In fact, it might not even change it at all. This is probably going to have a very similar effect to what I've already done, so I don't know if I am doing anything that's going to alter or change the look, or if I'm just adding stuff for the sake of adding stuff. Probably that. Yeah, I don't think that really did much else other than what I already had going on there. That's just putting more stuff on, but since we put it on the other eye, we'll go ahead and put it on this eye. And there doesn't seem to be a whole lot of fallout, maybe just like a tiny bit. But again, I put so much powder underneath my eyes that it's fine. It's gonna catch all that, but I don't think this is a formula that you're gonna have to worry too much about fallout with. There's definitely some in the pan, but there's not a ton of it on my face, so. And then sometimes you just need to take a step back away from the mirror and kind of check and see how your blend is looking. And yeah, definitely for as excited as I was to finally get my hands on the Queen of Hearts palette, this Beauty Rust palette is really doing it for me a little bit more. But then, this color story definitely just screams my name every time. Like a warm neutral with some kind of like ugly colors thrown in. I'm a fan. Okay, so now for the lids, I'm gonna start out with the shade here called Noblewoman. I'm gonna take that on my finger because this is one of those more kind of foiled shades, and I feel like those always work better with a finger than they do with a brush. And yeah, that picked up pretty well on my finger there, so that's what that looks like. And I'm gonna pop that right here on the lid. Not quite out into the corner because I wanna keep that matte dark thing going on out here, but just in front of that area. And then I do wanna go in with a brighter shade here on the inner corner. So I'm really just laying this color down right here in this area. And the same over here. And these shimmers definitely perform exactly how you would expect. Now, I feel like the quality of these shadows, the matte and the shimmer shades, they all feel and perform very similar to the Give Me Glow Cosmetics formula. And you guys know that I really like them. It's very similar. Like the mattes are so easy to work with. They go on really deep and really intense really quickly. The shimmery shades are super easy. You don't need like a glitter glue or anything for these to show up and to have that intensity. But it doesn't hurt to use a glitter glue. I definitely would use one if I wanted a really obnoxious pop, you know? And then my phone died. So what I'm gonna do on the inner half of my lids is I'm gonna go into the shade Dream from the Beauty Rust palette. Same thing, I'm gonna take that right on my finger. And this one is definitely more of an orange, and there might be like a little subtle yellow kind of glitter to it as well, which I don't know that that's going to really show up on the lids that much, but I think that the orange is going to look good with everything else that's going on already. So pop that on. This shade doesn't feel as like creamy as the red one did, but the intensity is still there. Yeah, the red one is one of those formulas that almost has like an oily kind of feel to it, or like an actual creamy consistency. And this orange one definitely just kind of feels a little bit more like a powder eyeshadow, but just with a little bit of extra thickness to it, you know what I mean? And then I am going to go in with a little brush here, just to get that color closer to the inner corners where my fingers just do not fit in that area. These giant sausage fingers do not fit into the cavern, which is the inner corners of my very deep set eyes. It is what it is. And there definitely is quite a bit more fallout with this shade. So this one is just a little bit different than everything else I've used so far. But it's still really pretty. It still works out good. I still like it. So between these two palettes, as far as something to put on my inner corner for a highlight there just doesn't seem to be anything that makes sense for this color story. Again, I find that with most palettes and most brands, there's always that one thing that I'm like, if you had tweaked that or if you had done something different there, then we would be fully complete. The shade Crown right here, I swatched it on my hand and it really just reads as like a cool toned white shimmer. So I pulled out this shadow. This is from the Safari Raine palette, so it's still colored Raine. So I'm just gonna pop that right into that inner corner and just kind of blend it in a little bit with this orange right here and kind of just bring it in a little bit under here. Yeah, that makes more sense with the other colors that we have going on here, and I just really like that shade a lot. I actually wish that I had picked up a second Safari Raine palette, especially after I depotted it and realized that I kind of fucked up some of the shadows. They did come back out with it, I think maybe last month or so, but I totally missed it. So, but it's fine. I'll work with what I got. Now, if you'll excuse me for just a minute, I'm going to clean up this fallout, get some waterline pencil on, some mascara, touch up these eyebrows really quick, and we'll be right back with lips. Okay, the rest of the face is done. I use the MAC Night Moth lip liner on the waterline. You guys know that's my favorite. Let's go ahead and move on to lips. So this lipstick came out with the Safari Raine collection. And again, I got the eyeshadow palette that came out with that collection. And I was looking at the lipsticks and I almost bought this one and I just didn't do it. But this came with the bundle, so I was pretty pumped about that since I already wanted it anyway. And the shade is called May She Rain. And this is definitely the type of nude lipstick that I normally go for. I like that nude lip that looks a little bit not too warm, not too cool, something right there neutral in the middle. So let's see how this one looks. Let's see how it applies. Gonna go ahead and start right down the center of the lip. Yep, this is definitely a My Lip but better kind of color. Yep. This is what I like to refer to as boy lipstick. I don't know why I didn't buy this sooner because I fucking love this color. It's a matte, but it's really comfortable. It doesn't feel dry on the lips. There's no scent to it whatsoever. Like no makeup-y smell, no vanilla kind of smell, like nothing at all. Okay, so a quick rundown on these products. I use the Queen of Hearts palette, which the mattes are fucking awesome. The shimmery shades are like really creamy. I only use 3 shades out of this palette today. I'm gonna play with it more. I'm a big fan so far. The Beauty Rust palette. This is one of those that, again, like it was just a bonus palette, I thought, because I really wanted this one. And as it turned out, this for me really kind of stole the show. This has those really rich, like rust tone reds and oranges, but it also has, I didn't use the shade Daisy, but this is kind of that ugly mustard tone that I love so much. Natural was a great shade. Dusk was fucking rad. Dream, this one went on so good. It was definitely a different formula from the shimmers in this palette, but it still worked out really well. I was able to apply it with a finger without the use of a glitter glue, and it worked really, really well. I highly recommend both of them. This lipstick, if this is still available to buy just on its own, I need like 75 more of these. I would hoard all of them and not feel guilty about it at all. This color is so good. This is definitely that My Lips but better nude. This is that like perfect nude that I'm always searching for. It's got enough depth to it that I don't feel like I need to wear a lip liner with it. It's got like a matte finish, but it's almost more like that satin matte, and it doesn't feel drying on the lips at all. Great formula, great color. It has no scent to it whatsoever. So if you're sensitive to scents in general, and definitely in your lip products, you don't have to worry about that with this one at all. But as a brand, with all of the products that I've used of theirs so far, I would love to try more. I don't know if they have complexion products like foundations and concealers or anything like that, but I'm definitely going to go on their website and do some further investigating. As far as like their eyeshadow formula goes, I feel like it's very similar to the Give Me Glow Cosmetics eyeshadows, where the matte shades are really intense, really pigmented, but they blend out super, super well. They're very beginner friendly. There's not a lot of fallout in most of the shades, so you don't have that to worry about. The shimmers are very easily just like finger on the lid, swipe it on, and you're done. Again, a lot of impact and not a lot of work to get it there. Now, definitely keep an eye out on my channel in the next few weeks. I got a lot of eyeshadow from a bunch of different companies, so this is definitely going to be the eyeshadow channel once again, definitely for a few weeks anyway. I do want to get into more of an updated skincare routine video. I have had some questions about that recently, and things have changed since I filmed my last skincare video, so I'm definitely gonna do that. I have a lot of makeup here, and I have some more coming from some Black-owned indie brands, so definitely keep an eye out for those. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here, and I'll see you guys on the next one.